Russians are right to be terrified of Ukraine's new commander-in-chief, Mykhailo Drapatyi, as Russians should be terrified of each and every Ukrainian soldier and warfighter that they're ever going to meet in their lifetimes. My name is Dimko Zhluktenko. I used to be a drone pilot here in Ukraine's Armed Forces and now turned quite recently into a lessons learned analyst, non-active combat role here in 413th Regiment of Unmanned Systems Forces raid. There were months where we were able to inflict about 96% of the casualties at the battlefield to Russian forces, specifically through the drone warfare, with the FPV drones and bomber type of drones being the main effector at the battlefield. And we are talking serious numbers like 35,000 of Russian invaders deleted solely through drones in a month. It's definitely in a big crisis, in the same way that the artillery is in a big crisis, just because of the technological ability of the drones to operate huge distances. It's basically like a loitering munition. You shouldn't really think of it as a drone. It's more of a munition that you could guide into any place that you want in a range of 20, 50, 100 kilometers, no problem. This obviously makes some of the jobs and functions in the military, not only Ukraine's military, but all the militaries in the world, less efficient, less optimal. Such as tanks being prime example, because in Ukraine's battlefield, we don't really operate tanks anymore. There is just a very, very limited application of them in urban environment in cities where operating drones is a bit harsher, but then still you have tons of other tools to take out those tanks. So they are very vulnerable at the battlefield, at the same time extremely expensive. In Ukraine's battlefield, we maybe see tanks just a couple times a year in crazy, stupid assaults, and it is impossible for now to see a mechanized breakthrough using the tanks specifically. There is an emerging threat in Ukraine's airspace because Russian jet-powered Shaheds, Geran type of drones, they are now becoming more and more seen in those strategic strikes that they are doing. And obviously the main advantage that they have over the normal ones is that they have a much bigger speed. And with such a speed, it's harder to track them on the radars, it's harder to chase them down. So the trade-off that we are trying to make is that we have a very limited amount of conventional classic air defense pieces, specifically the ammo for them, for NASAMS or for the Patriot PAC-3 missiles, and they are extremely expensive. Not sustainable for the amount of threats from Russian forces that we are getting over Ukraine's airspace. So this type of drones, such as P1 Sun jet killer, it's the response that we are trying to create towards Russian jet-powered drones. So our drones, we try to optimize them so they fly much faster, so that they are able to catch up to those jet-powered drones. But obviously it's a big challenge, and we would sometimes have to waste precious conventional air defense ammo on those. It's definitely near-peer warfare, but we have to keep in mind that even despite enormous Ukrainian spirit and resilience and the will to survive, to keep our independence, still we are fighting a much stronger enemy, mostly in terms of the resources, specifically human resource and money. It's a big challenge, but I think we are moving to the right direction of hindering their economic ability to wage the warfare, and as a first and foremost priority, but also to keep deleting their infantry soldiers at the immediate battlefield, which I think on the tactical level, we have stabilized the battlefield, and there is no potential for Russian forces to carry out a very significant land-based operation to achieve a mechanized breakthrough or anything like this. Russians are right to be terrified of Ukraine's new commander-in-chief, Mykhailo Drapatyi, And as Russians should be terrified of each and every Ukrainian soldier and warfighter that they're ever going to meet in their lifetimes. But what is so special about Mykhailo Drapatyi is that he is represented a new generation of military career officers that has formed from the commanding active battlefield ranks in 2014 when Russia invaded Ukraine and occupied Crimea and occupied big chunk of Ukraine's territory in the east with their conventional forces and the hybrid warfare. So Mykhailo Drapatyi was a commander of a battalion at that time, of a mechanized battalion, and he seen the warfare from the level of ordinary troops. He didn't start the warfare as a big general and higher up general staff or anything like this. So since 2014 and 2022, he has mastered a lot of his skills and didn't leave the army or anything like this. He's a committed military officer, and since 2022 he has been involved in so many of extremely important operations for Ukraine's defense, of coordinating them and talking to more junior officers on the levels of brigades and battalions to help them do their warfighting. So I think he really represents the modern way of warfighting, where you delegate the responsibility, when you give the initiative to the people who are willing, who have the best situational awareness over the battlefield. But that doesn't really mock the previous commander, Alexander Syrsky, which I think he was a great commander of Ukraine's forces, and he has carried us through extremely complicated times in Ukraine's defense. I think he cemented his legacy as a first ever drone general kind of a thing in the history of modern wars. He enabled the whole creation of unmanned systems forces, first ever to fight a war like this. Obviously a lot of hard decisions on his side. So I'm thankful for his leadership in the toughest of years of Ukraine's defense, and I really welcome and have high expectations of Mykhailo Drapatyi, new commander-in-chief. And this is overall the vibe that we get among the soldiers, that he's a good guy, and we expect that he's gonna do quite well in leading the force. But enormous high responsibility and historical responsibility is right there on his shoulders.